Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make a motorcycle battery out of capacitors. Let's get started.
For this project, we're going to need the following: 6 capacitors, which are 2.7 volts and 500 farads each, wires. So here I'm using leftover wires, which are 14 gauge that I used around the house, zip ties, wire cutters, wire strippers, solder, and soldering iron. I consider this project as moderate in terms of skill level because it does require some soldering. Now the time to completion for this whole thing should be less than an hour. First, I zip tie the capacitors together. Here I'm doing it in bundles of 3, and then those are further zip tied to make one giant bundle. Obviously you want to snip off the excess zip ties. Then you also want to orient those capacitors so it's easier to solder together. Next, I tin the terminal points on the capacitors. If you don't know what tinning means, it's applying a small amount of solder at those connection points. Next, I measure and cut sections of the wire so that I can connect all those capacitors in series. Here I'm actually stripping the ends of the wires so that I can tin those as well. Finally, I connect all the capacitors together using the sections of wires that I cut up and tinned. Also, just be very careful when you're soldering these capacitors together. The wire itself gets really hot, and the first time I did this I wasn't using the needle nose pliers and actually ended up burning my fingers. So just make sure you use needle nose pliers when you're holding the solder against the wire there. This wire being soldered to the capacitor bank is basically the overall negative for the whole bank. And this white wire is basically the overall positive. For those of you guys who don't know what soldering the capacitors in series means, here's a quick diagram to basically show you how everything was wired together. So as you can see, all the capacitors are chained from positive to negative so that it's one gigantic chain, and the overall starting negative is your overall negative and the ending positive is your overall positive. Here's what the overall setup looks like. I'm using a clamp meter to show you guys how many amps it will pull when I'm trying to start the bike. You can see here, it peaks roughly at around 12-13 amps. The wires are basically thick enough to handle the cranking amperage.
Thanks for watching this video guys. If you enjoyed watching this and want to see more, make sure to hit like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. And there's just a few things I want to share with you guys in terms of lessons learned. So, a capacitor bank is definitely a good way to replace your motorcycle battery. But there are pros and cons to this whole thing. Pros being that it's definitely much lighter weight than a regular motorcycle battery. It's universal, and it can last a definitely long period of time. Like, it's not gonna break on you or go bad on you for 5 years, just like the regular batteries are. But the main con here is the capacitor bank will not hold its charge for as long as regular batteries do. So it's a good idea to keep one of those portable jumpers in your backpack or on your luggage compartment of your bike. But if you already know how to bump start the bike, then that probably doesn't even matter. So I'll leave a link of one of those lightweight jumpers in the description. And again, thanks for watching guys.